What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Brockett, and I'm going to be comparing today 3 Neural DSP plugins: the Tim Henson, the Rabea, and the Plini. So I tested these out for Black Friday. Now, I was primarily looking for a clean sound, but also a nice sort of dirty sound. And what I mean by that is a sound with a little bit of edge, a little bit of break-up tone, a little bit of grit to it, but still fundamentally a clean sound. And then as a byproduct, some high gain sounds as well, but not quite as important to what I'm looking for. So here's a comparison of these 3 products based on the downloads. Now, look, I wasn't able to go into huge amount of depth on these. I really just went through, picked out my favorite presets for each piece of software, and then made a comparison using the exact same playing. So I recorded it into my DAW, and then I used the exact same piece of playing on each of those products to see which sounds I liked the best. And here are the results. So in regards to a clean sound, which was the main sound that I was looking for, there was one that was just hard to beat. It was just absolutely the best sound as far as I'm concerned. That sound was not from the Rabea. The Rabea's clean sound was fine, it was pretty good, but it was not my favorite. Now, I've done a bit of research on the Neural DSP plugins, and I was getting a lot of information, people saying Tim Henson. The Tim Henson is just the best, it sounds so great. But when I was listening to it, I was like, is it really? Is it really the best? Because it doesn't sound like it to me. Now, this, again, granted, is just based upon these presets. Now, if you're looking for presets, sure, go for the Tim Henson, because it's got way more presets, especially than the Plini, which only has about 20-25 presets. If you're looking for presets, then you want to go for the archetype Tim Henson. So what did I find? Well, look, here's the clean sound of the Rabea. And let's compare that to the clean sound, the best clean sound that I could find, which is called Worst Clean, coming from the Tim Henson. And then lastly, this is a preset called like Crystal something or other, which is out of the Plini. Now listen to that sound. That is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. I tried to match this clean sound on the Tim Henson. I tried to play around with some settings and get this clean sound, but I just couldn't get close to this. I also went into my brand new Amplitude 5 that I also bought on Black Friday, and I tried to recreate this sound. Now, apparently it is from a Jazzmaster 120, so I pulled up one of those and I went through and I had a tweak. I spent about 20 to 30 minutes trying to replicate the sound of the Plini. I just couldn't get there. I couldn't reproduce that sound. So the Plini stands out on its own. There's something special going on in there. So as far as I'm concerned, in terms of a clean sound, the Rabea is third, followed by the Tim Henson, and the very best clean sound is the Plini. Let's move on to looking at a dirty sound. So sound with a little bit of grit on it. these sounds were a bit different from each other, but nonetheless, I think that there was a clear winner for me in terms of dirty sounds. So here is the dirty sound from the Tim Henson. And let's compare that to the dirty sound from the Plini. And then lastly, here's the dirty sound from the Rabea. And that sound is frickin' fantastic. The Rabea sounds so good in the dirty tones, and that was one of the things, was probably the only thing, to be honest, that really stood out about the Rabea was its Fender Stratocaster sounds. Now I use a Strat, and so it has some really great Strat tones in it. If you want some edgy Strat tones or some really nice bluesy Strat tones, the Rabea is great. It's got some really nice tones, but there were a couple of disappointing things in the Rabea, and we'll get to those a little bit later. The winner, absolutely the Rabea for me. I think it sounds fantastic. Second was the Plini. Came in sounding pretty good. And then lastly for me was the Tim Henson. Didn't really like the dirty sound on that as much. Once again, I will just clarify, these are just presets that I'm using. I haven't been playing around for ages and ages with the amps, so if you want to say to me, oh no, you can get an amazing sound with the Tim Henson or whatever, fine, put that in the comments below. Let's move on to a high gain sound. Now, I didn't get one of these amps primarily for the high gain, although it's a bonus to have a nice high gain sound, but I was primarily looking for the clean. But here's the results of the high gain sound. Here's the Tim Henson. And then there's the sound coming off the Plini. lastly, we have the sound coming from the Rabea. Now, I expected this sound to be the best because the Rabea is kind of built around having a really great set of high gain sounds. I expected this sound to be the best. Here it is. Now, I don't know if you can pick that up in there, but the Rabea has a little bit of a problem with some digital noise. And so despite the fact that the Rabea does have some nice actual high gain tones, this digital noise is kind of annoying. And I didn't notice this on a little bit as well on the Plini and the Rabea, but not to the same kind of extent. And that's why I'm extremely surprised to announce that my order in terms of which is the best high gain sound is that number 3 is the Rabea, and I wouldn't buy the Rabea for high gain sounds. There you go. Number 2 I put at Plini. I think Plini's sound is number 2, and then probably the best high gain sound I think is coming off the Tim Henson. So hey, that's my comparison for what it's worth. Put any comments below about your experiences. If you've got these, maybe you want to make a comparison, just put your results down below. That's all good. What I do want to mention a couple of things about these plugins. They do sound really good. I heard people raving that they are so amazing, and because I happened to buy Amplitube 5, and I got Amplitube 5 because there's a lot of variation in it. I am doing some projects in which I'm going to need a number of quite a wide variety of sounds, so that served my purposes. Plus I also play a little bit of bass, and so I wanted those bass amps in there as well. And let's be honest, what a frickin' amazing deal Amplitube was. 80% off. 80% off on Black Friday. That was incredible. So down from what, $500 down to $100, and then when I went in to buy it, they gave me a $5 gift voucher just before I bought it. So I actually got it for like $95. That was, I would say, absolutely the best deal that I got over Black Friday. So that was fantastic. And I heard people ratting on Amplitube a bit, but I'm going to tell you, Amplitube sounds pretty good as far as I'm concerned. And I put Amplitube in this test as well. I didn't do the test on it, but what I wanted to do is to see if I could replicate the clean sound, and I brought Amplitube in, and listening to Amplitube side by side with the Neural DSPs, there's not that much difference. Be honest with you, there isn't that much difference. Amplitube is still pretty goddamn good. So all the people out there ratting on Amplitube, I think you might need to get your head checked. Anyway, so let's talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about the Rabea. So the Rabea is kind of, its point of difference is that it has a synth on board. Ooh, exciting. But I'm a music producer. I have loads and loads of synths. So I can give you an idea about how good the synth sounds are on the Rabea. And I would not buy the Rabea for synth sounds. Now, if you're just a guitar player, that's all you can do, and you want to get some synth sounds, then sure, go ahead, get the Rabea and you can get some synth sounds on there. But they're not that great. You certainly don't have the kind of variation, and you certainly do not have the modulation abilities that you'll have if you actually use soft synthesizers. There's just simply no comparison. So if you just want some synth sounds to play around with, or you want to add a little bit extra to your live gigs or whatever, sure, go ahead. But I would not buy the Rabea for its synth sounds. Now, I didn't really play around with the acoustic amp on the Rabea, but I can tell you that this amp, this kind of weird sort of clocky, coggy, whatever the f it looks like, amp on Rabea, sounds great. I really love this amp. It sounds really good. But the high gain amp on Rabea, disappointing in terms of the digital noise that it produces, and that's that I would not expect that from Neural DSP. I would expect something a lot more if I'm spending this kind of money just to get, you know, one set of amps. I'd expect a bit more. I will say that a lot of the presets are pretty good. Rabea's got the most presets because this is how Neural DSP works. The earlier plugins have very few presets, and then the newer the plugin, the more presets it has. So Rabea has truckloads of presets if you're after presets. The Tim Henson was less impressive than I was expecting. And this was because all of these videos that I saw which were talking about how amazing the Tim Henson was, and so I was expecting it to be the one that I was going to get for quite a while, but when I listened to the Plini and the Henson, I just couldn't get past the fact that the Plini just sounded better all over. It's you know, it doesn't probably have quite as good a high gain sound, but I mean that was again just off the preset, but you just couldn't match the cleans on the Plini. And I've heard people saying, oh no, the Tim Henson's clean sounds are better. Not in my experience. There we go. There's those Neural DSP plugins. Hopefully this was helpful in helping you to make a decision about what plugin to get. I know that people go out there and buy all sorts of Neural DSP plugins, but to be honest, the whole point of it, right, of the Neural DSP stuff is to get specific sets of sounds that you want. If you want all of the amp sounds, then get Amplitude 5 because it's got more amp sounds, more pedal sounds than you can shake a stick at. And I am pretty good at shaking a stick. Okay, that's this video. Thanks for listening. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, press the bell button, all the stuff, and I'll see you next time. Stay classy.